Hi. Happy Thanksgiving. It is 11:23 24. I think that's right. And yeah, it's 11:23:23, excuse me. And and happy Thanksgiving, and I'm very thankful that you guys are here with me today. And today we'll be playing some World of Warcraft. I'll be drinking some beer, and I'll just be having a good old day. And I hope you guys enjoy this. I don't really intend to talk too much today, so we'll see. And let's move forward. Thank you so much for your time, and let's just get to the gaming. Okay, and yeah, we are in and we are good. Now,
out of survival games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Anthony had an idea that we talk about our favorites.
Yeah, we do a tier list.
Ooh.
Yeah, this tier list looks good too.
It does look, well, I mean, it's just everything.
It's a tier list.
I know, but Anthony had to go make all those, grab those thumbnails, right?
Yeah.
Good job, Anthony.
Do we start by, like, just
get rid of the crap?
Yeah,
or
crap.
we go in order. I don't know the best way to do this. So, Deems, you're in charge.
Okay.
As far as like
I got the
moving
mouse.
stuff around. Yeah, you got the mouse.
All right, I got an idea.
What?
We can go. Can we go through everything right now and just go? We know stuff's at the top of the list, and we know that some's at the bottom, and then we rank the top of the list and the bottom of the list. So, like for instance, 7 days we know is on the top of the
7
list.
days is gonna go up there. Yeah.
So we know
pretty
that's,
high?
Yeah,
that's on
that's
the
up
top.
there.
We don't know where on the top.
Subnautica's going to go up there?
Yes.
Ooh, yeah.
And so is the
Subnautica's
forest.
probably.
Forest, good.
Forest could probably go up there. Yeah.
I'd imagine Ark's going to go maybe at least one tier down.
I would say.
I would say.
For me, it's up there. I know you guys would disagree.
So yeah, no, that's the debate. I wouldn't put it at the top.
Yeah,
Well,
no,
I mean,
that's why I said
drop
that.
Ark. I would almost drop Ark too.
I don't even think this is a survival game.
But
It is, though.
I'd be like,
It is.
hey,
It's like a survival game on speed.
ain't even
It's a rogue.
survival.
Ain't even.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
it is a survival
Well,
game.
you've got how many here?
Put
Because
Conan up there, too.
Conan up top?
Yeah, because I would think
See,
that.
well, this is the thing. It's like, yeah, now we got to debate because I feel like we got too much on the top.
Well, there's a
well,
lot.
we can
There's a lot
adjust it.
here.
We're
There's
just
a lot
starting.
here, and the top. When I say the top, and I mean it's just the top half.
On Simon's idea, why don't we create now a middle tier and a bottom tier? And then we start to.
Then we'll start separating them. All right.
Because middle easily, and grounded might be top, but middle's
Man,
probably.
this was pretty good too, wasn't it? Scrap
Yeah, but I don't think
That
that's gonna.
mechanic. Yeah. All right. All
Okay.
right. Yeah.
There you go,
That's,
I like
that's
that.
getting better.
All right, what would you consider to be bottom tier? That should be easy to figure out.
Not another survival
Yeah, I
game.
think Grand Prize is there on the list somewhere.
Yeah.
That trash.
Okay. You didn't?
hell?
Well, we didn't really get that
Fountain
deep
of
into
Youth?
it. Fountain of Youth, that kind of life.
Found yeah, we didn't play it enough. I don't even know
that's
why that's
true.
on the list. I feel like it's
It's
mid
single
tier.
player right now, so it's definitely not going to be top.
No.
Maybe mid.
you guys practice with the homies just a little bit too much.
Yeah,
Okay.
maybe mid. Yeah, put
Mist
that
is
mid.
bottom.
Now,
Yes.
only you two played this.
That's oof.
I mean, as it stands
it's
now.
not very bottom.
As it stands now, it's
we're
not.
not
It's
saying
very,
very
yeah,
bottom.
that's a good spot for Miss. It's like it's right in the middle. Like it has potential, but
Yeah.
it's just it's not there.
Right.
Oh,
right.
Stranded Deep, I might put here.
Yeah.
Is that what you're gonna do?
If
Yeah,
y'all
that
agree.
game's got a lot of jank. I could see it being a.
It's almost.
I don't
there.
think these guys know what they're talking about. I'm sorry, but clickbait.
Was that damn that's kind of high. What they probably did is they probably went their.
Thank you, S-Fan, for the excellent content from my stream. I'd like to sub to your channel.
I don't actually know what percentage of your damage as a hunter is your pet's damage. Probably roughly like that's probably where you start, right? Like,
20%.
it's like if you're doing like your standard rotation, whatever, you have all your gear, this and that. How big of an impact does your pet make? I think that's a pretty fair way of looking at it. Engrave pants, sniper training. Engrave your pants with sniper training. So this was changed. It got nerfed. Your shot abilities gain 10% increased crit chance when you have not moved for the last 6 seconds. So it was 30% increased crit chance if you have a move for 6 seconds, and then they dropped it to 10. They probably thought 30 was just way the heck too high. Yeah, probably just way too high, and they just nerfed it. So there's just this looks more like they just did some flat out damage nerfs to hunters. For mages, rewind time. So all they did was they changed the cooldown on rewind time, which rewind time is part of like this healing mage build that people have been talking about. I personally am not a huge fan of healing mages. Giving mages the ability to heal or kind of having a healing mage build for me seems a little weird in WoW. I mean, some people are like, well, what about white mages, right? The concept of like a white mage, you see those in Final Fantasy and whatnot. But a white mage is essentially what a priest is. Personally, I think it's a little weird. What I would have liked to see them do with Season of Discovery, if they want to add like some new type of gameplay option for mage, I would have liked to see a battle mage. I think the idea of a battle mage and having a rune that took some percentage of your spell power as a coefficient and just, hey, every time you auto attack, you're doing flat damage, kind of like what Seal of Righteousness does for a paladin. I think the idea of a battle mage would have been sick. So this just looks like a buff to the healing mage, 1 minute cooldown to 30-second cooldown. Okay. Holy, here's the juice. Okay, here's the juice. Paladin.
Welcome to the
Look at
Bank of
all
Stormwind.
this stuff for
We
Paladin.
offer financial
Okay.
accounts and safety
Let's get
deposit
into it. Let's see
boxes
what they
for
did
valuable
Paladin.
items.
So
Do
Beacon
you
of
already
Light,
have an account
it
with
used
us,
to be
man?
60, so they nerfed the
No
range
one's
from
ever
60 yards
stolen
to 40
anything
yards.
out of here.
So Beacon of Light is insane. When I saw that they added Beacon of Light in vanilla, which is something that you see in Wrath, any heal you cast on party or raid members will also heal the beacon for 100% of the amount healed. Only one target can be the Beacon of Light at a time. Lasts for 1 minute. This is insane.
Yeah.
I feel like if you give this to, I don't even know if they should have given this to Holy Paladins. Like this is how strong this will be in vanilla, with how powerful single target healing is for a paladin in vanilla. The fact that this even exists is insane. So I don't think this is too bad of a nerf at all, going from 60 yards to 40 yard range. I think it's just 20 yard range decrease seems like a lot, but 60 yards is just insanely long. I don't even know if it should have been that long in the first place. So,
Yep.
The next is Crusader Strike. So Crusader Strike received a nerf, and this is actually part of the feedback that I gave. Part of it, not all of it. When I had a chance to talk to somebody at Blizzard, I said, I actually don't think that Crusader Strike should be on a 4-second cooldown. I think it should be 6, which is what it is.
Hi guys, I love you.
Now I also
Happy
said,
Thanksgiving.
I think that it should be 6 seconds, and it should do more damage. Now, unfortunately, they didn't make it do any more damage either. So I'm like, what the hell? like I damn it, man. So the reason why I think that it shouldn't be 4 seconds and 6 seconds is better. I look at what they should do is go with the general concept of what the original Paladin design is. Paladins were not designed to be like a spammy class, right? Open globals. We've talked to Kevin Jordan before. He's the original class designer for Vanilla WoW, for Burning Crusade, for Wrath of the Lich King, and he actually mained a paladin in vanilla. He mained a paladin in vanilla, and I do really
These
believe
great
that having it at
beasts
6
know
seconds instead
paths
of 4
that you
seconds
can't
is
find on
better
foot. They'll get you
for
there
what
fast
the
and
paladin
maybe show you
is
something
and
new at
design
the
of
same
kit.
time.
But my feedback was,
Where is it you would
little
like
bit
to go
longer
last?
cooldown,
For just a
because
few
4 seconds
coin,
is
my
less than it
griffins
even
can
is
get
in
me
Burning
there
Crusade,
faster than
right?
even
Like
the
you-
swiftest horse.
like a paladin being more spammy in vanilla than in Burning Crusade just seems weird naturally, right? But even from a design perspective, paladins are designed around reactive gameplay and proactive gameplay. And what that comes from is having your globals open. You're not spamming everything constantly to where your globals are just always being used. And that's a lot of vanilla in general, but specifically for paladins, and that's exactly what Kevin Jordan said as well. Like, that's
I think I kind of disagree. If I didn't use my Sinister Strike every time I had the energy for it, I would lose a lot of energy.
You're blessing of freedoming this guy. You step back, you're throwing out flashlights, you're throwing holy lights, stun this guy, repentance this guy. There's a lot of proactive and reactive gameplay that paladins are about. I do think 6 seconds is better, but I don't think that it should have been nerfed and have the same damage. Now I will say this. There's a chance, just like with Hunters, it seems like they just got a flat damage nerf in some categories. I played Season Discovery. I played the demo at BlizzCon. And paladin damage was so insanely high. Like, I started like basically screwing around and trolling and just trying to goof off halfway through it. I started trying to wipe the group and just was like, we're doing so much damage. Can we even wipe? Like, can we even wipe? This is ridiculous. I just started like pulling random stuff or whatever. I think it was pretty clear that with that current tuning that I was doing way more damage than everyone else. So maybe in their testing, they felt like, look, Paladin actually is doing way too much damage. Personally, what I would like to see from Crusader Strike, I would like to see Crusader Strike be a 6-second cooldown, but I also wanted it to be moved to regenerate 3% of your maximum mana, and I would like Crusader Strike to do holy damage. I think if Crusader Strike did holy damage, that'd be sick. It looks like it's a physical strike as of right now. I would have liked for it to do holy damage and maybe a higher percentage, either like 100% weapon damage or maybe 75% holy damage. What I like about it doing holy damage is it cuts through your armor, and also you get the benefit of Sanctity Aura as well. I also want Crusader Strike to refresh Judgments like it does in Burning Crusade. I think Crusader Strike refreshing Judgments like it does in Burning Crusade is a lot of value. That is a little bit should more change. This is, in my opinion, having played it, I think this is something they probably should do. Just gotten the kind of sick, right? Consumed by rage. And if you go over, like, the idea is you want to constantly try and, like, you want to get back up over 80 rage every 12 seconds. Is there no cooldown on this? That's like a cool way of playing. If like the idea is cooldown is fine, again, it makes sense. But I think that it should do holy damage or it should do a little bit more damage physical. Either do holy damage or it should do.
The Rogue is another fan favourite in vanilla. In fact, a favourite of WoW as a whole. Great utility, survivability, 3 specs that all have their place and absolutely bring solid damage to any encounter. You know what every rogue has complained about though since 2004, right? They've always said they wanted to be main tanks. Hang on. They didn't say that? Wait, no, you're right. No one has ever complained about that. Well, who cares? They can do it now anyway. Yes, you heard that right. Rogues will be able to tank, and it actually looks like a really unique way of tanking as well, because the closest thing you could really compare this to would be a Brewmaster monk all the way down the line in Mr. Pandaria, because you'll be gaining combo points and spending them on survivability or damage. Kind of like building chi as a monk and then spending it on survivability or damage. You play a rogue because tanking isn't your thing, which, come on, that's why most people play rogues. They play a rogue basically because they want to do massive damage and nothing else. Well, you'll still be fine because some of these runes for DPS are actually insane. Firstly, I do like to give everyone a quick recap in case this is the first Season of Discovery video you're seeing. What are runes? Runes were announced at BlizzCon as the big part of Season of Discovery. They're class-altering attachments, but in the first phase of content, which has a level cap of level 25, you'll have chest, hands, and leg runes. There's 12 runes in total for each class in the first phase, and they're discovered from new quest chains, hidden areas, maybe even puzzles, group content, world events, just things that we don't even know about yet, which is what makes Season of Discovery very exciting because we can't wait to work it all out. First up, we're going to look at the hand runes, but before we do, why not hit like, subscribe to the channel, big push, let's get to 100k, want to see that plaque in the background?
Thank you for the excellent content for my stream. I'd like to sub to your channel, Scott J.
And let's get stuck in with the hand runes. So first up, we've got Main Gauche, if I'm even pronouncing that right. And this is going to be the first one of your tank runes, because what it does is instantly strike with your offhand weapon for normal offhand weapon damage and increases your chance to parry by 10% for 10 seconds, and this awards a combo point. It also does benefit from all talents and effects that trigger from or modify Sinister Strike, such as the first tier in combat, reducing the energy cost of Sinister Strike by 5. Now it costs 35 energy, so you're going to be able to bring it down to 30 by putting 2 points into this talent. Now the interesting thing is you're going to have to use it quite cleverly because it's got a 20-second cooldown, but we know the uptime is only 10 seconds. So whilst it's probably very tempting to use this on cooldown, you're going to want to line it up and make sure that you're making maximum use of that 10% parry. Next up, we've got an old fan favourite, which everyone who's played further than vanilla will know, Mutilate. So what Mutilate does is it instantly attacks with both weapons for 100% damage, plus an additional X amount with each weapon. Damage is increased by 20% against poison targets, and this awards 2 combo points. Mutilate does benefit from all talents and effects that trigger from or modify backstab unless otherwise specified. So this could be like the second tier, which is improved backstab in combat, where it increases the critical strike chance of your backstab by 10%. Obviously, if you put 3 points in that, taking it out to 30%. It's also worth noting this is not the TBC version of Mutilate, where you actually have to be behind the target. This does look like it's got no positioning requirement, which is obviously a very good thing because getting all the benefits from backstab and using this while you're leveling and not having to worry about being behind is obviously a good thing. I do want to touch on a couple of things about Mutilate and a later rune, which I'll just say it now. It's Envenom, and obviously it's going to play very similar to the normal Wrath playstyle of Assassination, where you're mutilating as a combo builder, you're spending with Envenom. There's one little issue I've got with it, and hopefully we get some clarification around it. So if you're wondering what I'm thinking about, stick around and you'll find out. On glove runes, you're quite spoiled as a rogue because you've got 5 different choices, and the next one's Saber Slash, which viciously slashes an enemy for 130% weapon damage and causes a target to bleed for X amount of damage every 2 seconds for 12 seconds, and this does stack 3 times. Saber Slash again benefits from any talent and effect that triggers from or modifies Sinister Strike. And if you're extremely observant and you're looking at this thinking, hang on Scott, you've got this wrong. I've been using the talent calculator and making all my rune setups and theory crafting how I'm going to be playing my rogue. Well yeah, actually you're right, because this has changed. So Saber Slash, as you can see in the latest data mining, has actually gone from 55 energy to 45 energy. What I was going to say in this video, which is literally irrelevant now, was that due to it being quite expensive and even having improved Sinister Strike, it's still going to cost 50 energy, you will probably be using it just to maintain the bleed damage. So once you've got it stacked, you would then go to using Sinister Strike until you're ready to refresh the stack of the bleed. Well, now you're actually bringing it down to 40 energy with improved Sinister Strike. It is literally just your combo builder. Next up will be a quick one because it's pretty much Shadow Step, but also with an attack thrown in for free. So we've got Shadow Strike, where you teleport behind the target and strike
Wow.
150% weapon damage to the target. You must be stealth.
Oh, I want that.
1 combo point. Not a lot to say. It is basically
Shadow
your way of
Step.
getting Shadow Step. I'd probably rather Shadow Step though, rather than this. You know, so you could at least Shadow Step Sap, Shadow Step Cheap Shot, Shadow Step. You know, use it a little bit more intelligently than it actually just doing an initial attack, sort of baked into the teleport. But still, it's pretty cool. And there's no doubt this is going to be absolutely amazing for PvP because it's got no cooldown. And there's many times as a rogue that you will run away to break combat so you can get back into stealth. So being able to use this quite frequently probably is going to feel pretty great, especially in places like Ash and Val PvP. And then finally,
Shadow
we've got Shift.
Strike.
So instantly attack with your offhand weapon to deal normal offhand weapon damage with a 100% chance to apply the poison from your offhand weapon to the target. Slower weapons require more energy and it awards 1 combo point. Shiv's great and it's an ability that we're all very familiar with if we've played a rogue. And
Yep.
it's good for utility. So if you was in charge of, let's say, putting mind-numbing poison on a boss or on an ad or whatever, then having Shiv to make sure that you can get it on when you need it on would be great. Do you really want to sacrifice any of the other abilities that you get from runes just for Shiv? I feel like Shiv's in the wrong place, if I'm honest with you, because there's just far too much competition for anyone to seriously actually ever want to take this rune. Next up, we'll do the chest, and we've got Deadly Brew, which when you inflict any poison on a target, you also inflict deadly poison. Now, this will be huge if you're using Mutilate and Envenom, like I've already spoiled is coming, because you can literally just run double instant poison, or you could go instant and a utility poison. Just a Flesh Wound is your tanking rune, and you don't really have any options with this one. If you want to tank as a rogue, you're going to have to use it, because you take 20% reduced physical damage while Blade Dance is active. Additionally, you have a 6% reduced chance to be critically hit with melee attacks, so you'll be crit immune. The threat generated by all your actions is massively increased, and your feint ability is replaced with Tease, which taunts the target. So this is when you come online as a rogue tank. Without this, you're just not going to be able to do it because you're not going to get the increased threat, as well as all the other things. Next up, we've got Quick Draw, where you draw your ranged weapon and fire a quick shot at an enemy, causing normal range weapon damage and reducing the target's movement speed by 50% for 6 seconds. This does award a combo point. Quick Draw also benefits from anything that triggers or modifies Sinister Strike. Again, this would definitely be more of a PvP rune, but probably will see its uses in some PvE encounters as well. These abilities are part of the Outlaw Rogue in retail, and have been part of the Outlaw Rogue for a long time. I didn't realise I had an audience while I was recording. But having some ranged abilities in general with Rogue in PvP is going to be absolutely amazing. Next up, we've got Slaughter from the Shadows, which reduces the energy cost of your backstab and ambush abilities by 20. This does not apply to Mutilate. So if you were going to be a dagger combat rogue, for example, this would take your backstab down to 40 energy, which is actually making it a lot more reasonable to use. Quite honestly, looking through them, I think if you're going Mutilate on your gloves, you're going to go Deadly Brew. If you're going to be a tank, you're going to use just a Flesh Wound. If you're going for a PvP rogue, you're going to go Quick Draw, and really anybody else would be going Slaughter for the Shadows, potentially, to then run a dagger combat spec. If you were Swords combat spec, Deadly Brew would probably be the way to go. Remember, this is all speculation, so if there's like hundreds of you rogues all gathered round talking about what's potentially going to be best, I'm only speculating as well. So, and then finally, we've got the legs. Now, you've only got 3 choices on the legs because you have 5 on the gloves. We might as well start with the easiest one, which is Blade Dance. If you're a tank rogue, you have to use this. It's a finishing move that increases your parry chance, it lasts longer and grants more parry based on combo points spent. So you're going to get between 6% with 1 point up to 10% parry with 5 points, and it lasts 30 seconds with 5 points. Now this is why it would be important with things like main goosh, that word really makes me laugh, because you're probably going to want to open up with this to get the 10% parry straight away. This would really be the first ability you press, because until you start spending some combo points, you're getting no benefit from Blade Dance at all, of course. And really, you're going to want to be spending 5 combo points as soon as possible, and I think that's where things like evasion will come in really useful, outside of just using it as when you know there's predicted big damage about to come in. Evasioning on the pull to enable yourself to be able to get a 5-point Blade Dance up could actually be really strong as well, especially if it's a really hard, fast hitting boss. Just popping it, knowing that you're safe for the whole 15 seconds to get everything up that you need going, because once you've actually got it up, then it's just like spinning plates. You're just going to be making sure that you don't let these things drop off. But the interesting thing about a rogue tank, when you look into the talents in combat, you can get 5% dodge from the first tier and then 5% parry from the second tier. So from runes and talents, and without taking any baseline parry into account, you're going to get 25% parry. Now the 10% that you're going to get from your glove rune isn't going to be up all the time. It's only going to be up, well, half of the time, but you'll be keeping Blade Dance up 100% of the time. So the vast majority of the time, you're going to have quite a large amount of parry. And let's not forget, if you do go combat tank, you're also going to get riposte. So when you do parry, you're going to be able to disarm as well. And it's a very low energy cost, high damage dealing ability on only a 6-second cooldown. So yeah, I really like the look of rogue tanks. I still think they might struggle a little bit compared to the other tanks, but I don't want to jinx it. They could be mega strong. We may as well get Envenom out of the way because I've mentioned it before, and I've said I've got a concern about it. So it's a finishing move that deals instant poison damage based on your deadly poison doses on the target, and then following the Envenom attack, you have a 75% increased frequency of applying instant poison for 1 second, plus an additional 1 second per combo point. And then it does a ton of damage based on attack power, so we know it's going to scale really well. So my concern, using Deadly Brew, Envenom, Mutilate, absolutely, like that's going to be the way to go if that's the playstyle that you want. The problem is, in vanilla, poisons have got charges. So just looking at instant poison at level 20, it's got 40 charges. How quick are you going to tear through those 40 charges when you use a big 5-point Envenom? You've got 5 seconds of where you're just going to be slapping those poison charges into the boss. You're going to be literally reapplying poisons like every 30, 40 seconds, which that will be pretty frustrating. So I'm hoping Blizzard have thought about that and you rogues actually see a bit of a quality life change there, where they use poisons from, you know, Wrath, like we get them now, where you just put it on your weapon and it lasts X amount of time rather than X amount of charges. But overall, having Envenom's great, but then that just leaves us to the last leg rune, which is a bit lackluster unless you're going to be PvPing. It's a range finishing move that causes damage per combo point increased by attack power and stuns the target. So it's from a 1.1 second stun up to a 5.5 second stun, and it shares a cooldown with Kidney Shot. Now it's got a 20-second cooldown, but it is on a 20-yard range, so in PvP, having someone trying to kite you when you're using Shadow Strike to teleport behind them, Quick Draw to be able to still build combo points when they're trying to run away from you, and then locking them down with Between the Eyes, is going to make Rogue a lot of fun. I personally am going to have a Rogue for PvP. The tanking on a Rogue don't interest me, don't get me wrong. The Shaman tanking really interests me, but for some reason, the Rogue one is not really ignited my interest enough for me to want to do one. But I really want a rogue for like Ashen Val PvP. I think it's going to be mega fun having those ranged abilities, ranged stuns, teleports to the target. Like, it's going to be pretty insane. Tell me what you're most excited about for your rogue in Season of Discovery, and if you've got anything to add, because at the end of all of these videos, I will be doing one big video with all 9 of them together, taking our learnings, our thoughts, amendments, and any minor changes that's happened between posting the video and then doing the big video of all 9 classes together. If you've got any input, stick it down in the comments. Thank you for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, as I say, big push, 200k, let's do it. I'll see you on the next one.
Excuse me. Thank you, iSizen, for the excellent content for my stream. I'd like to sub to your channel. This video is called "I Played 100 Days of Ark Survival Ascended."
Ark Survival Ascended is a game about dinosaurs, farming, and exploration. It's the remastered Unreal Engine 5 version of Ark Survival Evolved, and as you can see, it's absolutely breathtaking. The atmosphere is completely different from the game we remembered. It feels large, dense, and obviously there's no shortage of dinosaurs and jump scares. I've come to know and love this island, so it's time I put myself to the challenge of playing 100 in-game days to become the ultimate survivor. Let us begin this expedition of a lifetime and work our way to ascension. Damn, this is odd. What does the inventory look like? Oh. 30 new stats, or is no, it's all the same. I want to see what the jump looks like. Alright, let's start making some tools. Let's gather, you know, the normal Ark stuff. Do we have new colors? I might have seen a crazy looking PT right now. Hey, this is voiceover Sizen. It's really hard for, in real life Sizen, is that a thing? To focus when playing a new game, especially something like this. So I'll take over for a bit. The sounds are weird. Completely different sounds. We still got that going on. That's cute, I guess. I'm not used to this. No. It's gonna take me a while to start actually playing the game. What I mean by that is everything was so pretty that it was like my mind is playing tricks on me. And also everything is more fluid. The hair animations are a little too real for me. The hell was that? Verdberry? There's new berries. Okay, I didn't know we were adding new stuff to the game. All I'm gonna say is I think Wildcard made the Maginberry after me. Sure, let's unlock the sleeping bag. I'm excited to see the new structures. Oh, it's a Bronto! What am I hearing right now? Alright, my first fight in Ark Survival Ascended. Damn, the blood is smooth. Pressing, okay. Alright, who was gonna tell me they added babies and juveniles to this game? There's babies? What do I do? What? Alright, let's get started on a little something for a base. Gosh, this is so pretty. I think for those of you that are weary about buying this game, because I know I was, just go ahead and do it. I'm gonna call you guys out right now, okay? I'm gonna keep it real with you. For all of those saying that they don't want to pay money for a remastered Ark Survival Evolved are the same ones that spend $50 on the Halo Master Chief Collection, which is a remastered Halo. So, okay, I'm done. But just get it. I promise you won't regret it. Wow, next gen. You say guys are wearing parasol. There's babies, right? Can I just feed them? What do I do about this? I'm confused. Hey, it's Future Sizen again. All I found out about babies so far is that they offer a lot of prime meat, which is extremely helpful on the beach, but that's about it. Oh, interesting. Hopefully everything's the same as I remember. I didn't even see what level this guy was.
This does not look like good gameplay to me. If this is the first thing that you see, I don't know, man.
I'm sorry. It doesn't show it anymore? A few things were different, and I'm not sure how to fix it, but I couldn't track knocked out dinos for some reason, which is honestly annoying. There we go. Timing effectiveness 100. Perfect. What happens with the babies? Did they just become mine? Come with me, Hubert. My very first tame in this new world. Wow, that obelisk looks crazy. What the hell? Alright, come over here. Come on, buddy. You can stand right outside my base. And even the animation of running with the spear is so cool. It's so much better. Everything's more fluid. Oh, wow, okay. I'm just now realizing it doesn't tell you the name of the stuff you're gathering anymore. It just shows the picture. Those are just meant to... I guess you can eat them, but they also just make dye. I think now I just start making a couple of cooking pots. Get some extra XP. Most of my Ark playthroughs typically go the same way at the start. I get a parasaur, I make a little starting base, I gather enough materials to craft cooking pots so I can eventually get a PT and fly off the beach. So the rock gets a bunch of cracks in it as it breaks down. Alright, back to the cooking pots. I think they nerfed the hell out of the XP that it gives you because I grinded like I normally did and I got about half the levels. Let's just take a moment and say that this is Ark. And it's just wild to think that. Officially on day 2. Made it through our first full day of Ark Survival Ascended. I think I have a bromance situation going on with my character. I mean, would you not? They made the characters look so good. Does this make me...
That guy does not look good to me.
It's a video game. Whoa, they give you Prime? Well, they're incentivizing killing babies. Okay. Let's make a bow and some arrows, shall we? What? Nope. I made the water scarier. Might have to go down a little bit further today. Wow, I knocked it out. Say less, that was like really easy. Okay, working on our third tame. I don't know if some funky business was going on, but I came back like literally 2 minutes later, and the PT had already woken up and flown away. Did he really wake up that fast? That's unfortunate. After losing the PT, I didn't feel as comfortable leaving my base today, so I figured I would just take my time, appreciate Ark Survival Ascended for what it is, and head out when the time felt right. Another thing they added into character creation that I love is changing your voice. Us Ark players needed this. It sounds so much better than the normal Ark guy. I ended up spending more time on my base than I wanted to, but I upgraded everything to wood, thinking that I had to leave it behind, but just doing it for the XP. The way your character walks now when you're encumbered or when you're crafting something could make some really cool cinematics. Starting a new game on launch day is always fun, but there's questions to be answered, like the hairstyles. Do we unlock them like ASE, or do we just have what we get? What? Damn, I feel like I'm going through the gate to heaven. What is this light? Man, that's so cool that you can pick all this stuff up now. After packing up the rest of my base, I stuffed the inventories of my 2 friends, and we headed out to go find a more permanent base location. Maybe should have thought about the time that I was leaving, because it's almost nighttime. I guess we just get over this hill and we can set up something temporary just for the night. They changed the terrain a little bit, so it's kind of disorienting. I think this is where I'm trying to go. Some things look super realistic, and then other things, it's almost like they converted it to a more animated cool. As I stated earlier, I just wanted something temporary to get me through the night until I could start traveling again in the morning, so I threw up my structures that I had. I'm pretty sure I went AFK to go eat a burger, and yeah, the night was pretty uneventful, but I'll see you in the morning. I think I'll start packing up now, so by the time I'm done, I'd say we're good to go. While I load up my temporary base, the next part of the journey is going to be really tough, because getting to where I want to go...
This is boring to me. It looks like a really bad version of Rust. I mean, I've always thought this. When I played it, it felt like it. I was like, this is a really, really bad version of Rust.
I think the first dungeon...
Thank you, Asmongold, for the excellent content on my stream. I'd like to sub to your channel. I suppose I could watch the rest of that, I suppose. Thank you, Fancy Or, for the excellent content for my stream. I would like to sub to your channel.
has been wiped a few times by this team. Close to them.
See, like, this looks so much cooler than me and more involved and definitely more, like, engaged and well done and just designed better graphics.
Their monument, controlling the military base that Furlough wants to obviously control. So he ordered a hit. He promised us resources and good alliance and anything we need if we go raid them.
This was going to be a quick in and out mission for OT as they arrived on the beaches of Florida to travel down to Mexico. The people of Mexico had no idea this attack was about to happen, but they soon were about to find out. OT arrived to Mexico and would start to build their raid base. Only a few members of Mexico were home, so this raid would end very quickly. OT started raiding through Mexico's base, and a few soldiers from Mexico were fighting back on the hill, trying to stop the attack and take back what was theirs. But OT had too much control of the situation and quickly shut down any form of resistance. Mexico's base was raided right to their core. A very important deal was made on this day of the event. The United States was very pleased of the work from OT in taking out their #1 competitor in North America. President Brallo paid OT off for their hits, and now America had full control of the MORS launcher, which he could use to assist OT in raids. This was a mutual benefiting relationship between these two countries, which would give them a huge advantage over the world. Word got around on the server that OT and America were teamed, and now every country realized the other key aspect to this event: creating allies. It's not only important to attack other nations and conquer territory, but OT in the USA demonstrated that you also need friends on the server to survive.
Welcome to Global News. We're here to provide credible and groundbreaking information. We dig for information that nobody else can find. We are Channel 9 Global News. Alright, now coming back to the office, we have territory updates and base locations with reporter Kezo.
Thanks for that, Big Sexy. Today on the territory news, several large countries have taken their places on the globe. OT have the Middle East in a chokehold, demonstrating their incredible and admirable skills early on in the event. Over in America, the USA is defending its territory against invaders Mexico and Greenland. So far, they've been led by a fearless Brolo in defending successfully.
And just so you're not confused, this episode just came out right after OT raided Mexico, so now you're updated that Mexico is no longer a threat to President Brolo.
In South America, there are several smaller groups.
It's boring. Thank you, Val, for the excellent content for my stream. I've liked and sub to your channel. This video is called Half-Life, a 25th anniversary documentary.
You just go over the mountains over here, and you're in high desert. You get past Ellensburg, and it's high desert. So I spent a lot of time out there getting reference. Most of the reference came from Eastern Washington. I did a drive out to the Columbia Gorge and took a lot of photos, and also a lot of just reference imagery of just like, hey, this is what desert looks like, and big cliffs and stuff like that. That drive was 2 days. It was 8 hours down, 8 hours back, and I'm not even sure I spent the night. I did. I must have spent the night down. So while it was definitely made for the Southwest, the local reference was out in the Columbia Gorge.
Good morning, and welcome to the Black Mesa Transit System. This automated train is provided for the security and convenience of the Black Mesa Research Facility.
Half-Life.
My name is Mike Harrington. I was co-founder at Valve. I wasn't really used to big companies. When I started at Microsoft, it wasn't that big. It was like 1,500 people, like a big high school. 9 years later, it was significantly bigger. I was like, oh, this place is too big. And that was still like 1996. So they had a long ways to go. I told my managers like a year before, like, I'm leaving. I'm leaving in a year, and I'm going to start a game company. And the first person I talked to was a good friend of mine, Michael Abrash. But at that time, he was trying to do something within Microsoft, and by the time it made sense, John Carmack had convinced him to go work at id. So how could he say no to that? And then I was having lunch with Gabe, and I said, Gabe, I'm leaving. I'm just going to leave, and I'm going to start a game company. He goes, I want to leave. I want to start a game company. All right, and that was it.
On the surface, we should have failed. And realistically, both Mike and I thought we would get about a year into it, realize
Gabe Newell.
And go back to our friends at Microsoft and ask for our jobs back. I think that we knew a fair bit about software development, that there were expertise that goes into it. I think we also had some pretty clear ideas of how to design a company, right? So when we were building Half-Life, we were also designing Valve at the same time.
We had no plan except for, by then, like I mentioned, Michael had gone to id. And he said, oh, you're starting a game company, you have to use our engine. So Gabe and I flew down to Mesquite to meet id. We spent a good deal of time with John Romero, and he told us, like,
it is a good company.
What you need to do to start a game company. You need to go out and hire some level designers and do that.
Happy Thanksgiving, guys.
The engineering part. And then, because we were Michael's friends, we walked away with the source code to Quake that day. We had no contract yet. We had kind of an idea of what it could be, and they just gave us a CD, and we had kind of the crown jewels of it, and that, game on.
I think most of us had no game development experience. We were either amateurs working in our homes at night for fun, or some people were from the software world, but they had never worked on a game. I think we had 3 or 4 people in the entire company who had actually shipped a game when we started Half-Life. We have to figure out what is Valve's first game. So we have to come up with an IP. So everything is done from scratch.
Gabe came into the office and he said, I read this story. I read this Stephen King story called The Mist. Stephen King's got monsters, people in a grocery store, the fog comes in, monsters in the bar, use your imagination. We didn't want to write that as a game. That wasn't really the point, but it was just the tension and how it felt.
Well, it was interesting. At first, we had 2 games. Greg was working with Prospero, and then Half-Life was originally called Quiver.
My job was then build a team and figure out another game for us to build. So the second game Valve ships. What features should it have? How is it going to be different from a normal first-person shooter? Every time the engine got a feature for Prospero, Half-Life stole it. And then Half-Life just started getting visually, more impressive and cooler. And eventually it just, because it was going to ship sooner, it just stole the resources from Prospero, and Prospero just faded away.
So I had this character, had a floating orb, and it wanted to have some, effects on it. It's kind of magical energy, something. And so I worked with them on that and came up with the first version of the beam effects. And they were using it, they were happy with it. And then people in Half-Life are coming over and like, what is that? How did you do that? So very quickly that got into Half-Life. The disaster sequence has kind of beam effects all over it, and we ended up using it for the Morgans.
There are a bunch of things that we were doing that we thought would help us tackle the problem of what video games were. And what video games were a rapidly changing field where, at the time, 90% of video games failed to turn a profit. And a few percentage of them were very, very profitable, right? So it was a field that really valued talent.
Like I said, Gabe and I brought some people, and then from there on out we had to hire people, and Romero said to hire level designers. So we found some people who had industry experience.
Worked on Rise of the Triad first as a pixel artist, and then went with Duke Nukem, and then everything just went nuts. Well, I was sitting in my office one day, and my phone rang out of the blue, and I pick it up, and it's this recruiter. Eventually, he hooked me up with Gabe, and they flew me up here. It was a big surprise.
But then we started looking, the nice thing that we had is we had a whole bunch of people in the world who had been working on mods, and so we could start looking at those folks. And that's where we hired a lot of our designers.
Steve and Guthrie, Steve Bond and John Guthrie were my favorite hires by far. Other than Doug, Gabe sent out an email and they're like, who is a scammer? Never heard of these guys. Just kids, like barely 20, I swear. And they show up and they're just the most creative, brilliant, fucking clever. Steve had the magic ability to make stuff fun. The fact that those guys have been hired to go work on some game for some company, I think that was the start for a lot of people that something cool was going to happen, because those guys were already doing stuff that was cool.
And then Mark showed up, and Mark actually knows how stories work, beginning, middle, end, and all this stuff, and he had all sorts of great ideas, and he also would just bring good ideas out of everybody else as well.
Like the person who wrote more code on Half-Life was a chemistry major who decided to be an IP lawyer in Atlanta, right? And he ended up writing more code than anybody else. The creature designer for most of the AI for the creatures in the game was a manager at a Waffle House. It's not like there are a bunch of people that you could say, oh, this person has a PhD in video game design. It was that combination of both finding those people when it wasn't necessarily easy to find them at that stage in the video game industry, and then also convincing them that it was a better place to work than anybody else.
One of the things that I definitely learned was how to hire engineers, and we need some engineers.
For us anyway, we licensed its engine. We're using the Quick engine, and one of the things me and some of the other engineers, probably Ken, were talking about was if it would be possible to use the save system to kind of like join our levels together in a really seamless way, so you get to the end of the level, save stuff, and then load some of it on the next level, and have it just feel like the world's all connected.
And so we had like every once in a while a hallway or the train would get to a point and you would have a little stop for the level to transition. And so he wrote that code leveraged on top of just the save load code to do the transitions. And I think in Half-Life 1 we got most of the transitions were a second or two.
I remember when we went from 8-bit to 16-bit, like, hey, we don't have to have all our characters fit into certain 256 colors. That was a huge liberation.
The two tech investments we made for Half-Life was to get to 16-bit color and skeletal animation for all the monsters.
But at the time, it was completely revolutionary. Your Quake characters were, it's like a text file of vertex positions over time.
I wanted so much more animation, and I wanted the animators to have the freedom to put in 100, 200, 500 frame of animation, if not more. And then you could do all sorts of other things because you have a skeleton, so it's like, oh, I can hook on a gun to a character. I can start to make changes of characters and replay the same animation or reuse most of the same model, so we can swap out heads, we can swap out this, we can swap out whatever.
Like, all the technology that went into the game to make it as fun as it is was not available one generation before. So licensing the Quake engine, which was very mature and had level designers who'd grown up just goofing around with it.
I wasn't heavily into scripting since back into Doom. Like, my old Doom levels have a lot of weird, odd events in them. I think I asked Ken, is it possible that I could, have access to the character's animation, like a trigger? Like what I mentioned, I could make the guys go into an animation, I could make them run, and then I would configure everything. It was all hack. This is total hacky stuff. And that is mostly what I built, was like things like characters reacting and jumping out are made to look like, or I use a push brush to throw a head crab out to make it look like it launched at something.
Or if a loud sound happens,
they would respond, yeah.
So games dictate was, as you walk forward, something needs to happen like every 3 to 5 seconds. The player stands still, the universe can be quiet. But if they move forward, if they're active, the universe needs to play back something, needs to do something, even if it is a scripted sequence or
even just an interesting sign
or a sound or some vignette or something. So I came up with this interaction method where you could do little AIs where the characters would talk and interact with you a little bit. And then we wanted to do spectacle, and that was scripted sequences where you could tell a character, you need to run here and then jump into this animation, and then have a bunch of you all synchronize your animation because it's somebody flying through the air, they're smashing something, or they're doing something like that.
And then test it and figure out, like, oh, this is real easy to break. That was the roughest thing about scripted sequences, where you'd have like a head crab jumping on a scientist or something, and it's like, yeah, it works totally fine 90% of the time, but some people just sprint right at the scientist, and sometimes we have to put it behind glass. And
sometimes getting the level designers making the player want to do the thing that gives them the most fun is a very subtle art.
The tentacle sequence is probably the one I remember the most.
Playing it, right? That was the first time I think they melded together.
Because you had your trigger
so closely,
and we wanted it to be triggered. So by the time you start to see it, you see the scientist flying through the air and hitting the wall. Then you could look in and you could see the scientist being carried away. The tentacle itself is separate; it's on its own, and you bring the two together, mesh them together, and boom.
It felt so seamless though, and that for me is like moments like that, and that might have been the first one, is when you start to see the scripted events and play start to blend a little bit more than just ambience.
Oh my God, we're doomed!
Lab scenes where scientists would walk from one area to another and just look at a monitor, and it gave them a little bit of life. A ton of the work that went into that area was because we knew it was going to be the beginning of the game, and we really needed to make it a vibrant and interesting, fun place to be and explore.
So originally they were designed to sort of be behind glass. They were just designed to be spectacle.
little vignette.
And then all of the level designers like, no, I'm gonna put that right in front of you. I'm like, oh God, how am I supposed to make this work? It's not supposed to do it.
Get away from there, Freeman. I'm expecting an important message.
The run speed for the player was so insane.
Yeah.
It was like, what, 25 miles an hour or something?
It was sprinting.
You could get so far, so fast. And so you'd either have to make the scripted sequence like so quick that you could barely see what's happening. Most people aren't looking in the right place anyway, so you'd have to like get their attention with like a particle or a sound or lighting or something. And then you wanted them to see what was happening. But when we play tested, and if like a scientist was like being pulled into a vent or something, like people wouldn't just stop and like, oh, sometimes they would, be like, oh wow, look at that. They just run straight ahead and just start shooting.
It's hard when you think back to it to recognize that those kind of interactive moments were so new. Like people just hadn't seen them.
It was worth it because no other games were doing that. No other games had that interactivity. No other games had that spectacle playing out in front of you. And it just added that whole feel of Half-Life. Gabe had started to develop this theory around interactivity, and the environment needed to let you do what you wanted and then react to it. So if you did something, if you shot your gun, there needed to be a bullet hole in the wall. If you did a thing, people needed, other characters needed to react. The world is acknowledging you exist. The world is acknowledging all of your actions. And that's this huge part of reinforcement.
And you'd have these conversations where you'd be sitting in a design review and somebody'd say, that's not realistic. And you're like, okay, what does that have, explain to me why that's interesting, because in the real world, I have to write up lists of stuff I have to go to the grocery store to buy. And I've never thought to myself that realism is fun. I go play games to have fun. And so we had to come up with some notion of what fun was. We knew it was an ad hoc definition, and it was the degrees to which the game recognizes and responded to the player's choices and actions, right? In behavioral science, you would say we're explicitly talking about what were reinforcers and what the reinforcement schedules were, right? At that point in time, that was a useful way of making design decisions. The point I would make is, if I go up to a wall and shoot it, to me it feels like the wall is ignoring me. I'm getting a narcissistic injury when the world is ignoring me. So it is to me, I was trying to convey to the user a sense of, yes, you were making choices, yes, you were progressing, which meant the game had to acknowledge that back to you. If you shoot at a wall, there have to be decals. If you kill a bunch of Marines, the Marines have to run away from you, right? You have to have this sense of the game acknowledging and responding to the choices and actions and progressions that you've made. Otherwise, it loses any sort of impact.
Ted and we were on the same page in terms of what the game should look like, which would be just sort of alien in a very naturalistic kind of way. Like these are creatures from another dimension, another planet that look like they evolved in a way. And Chuck had he came from Duke Nukem. He made a bunch of monsters that went in a sort of a different direction. And for a while, the game had a hard time coalescing around a single vision.
All the ones that looked like genitals were Ted's. And all the ones with shiny bits that looked like alien soldiers were Chuck's.
That was a thing when I first came in, Ted's style and mine. And trying to figure that out. Trying to find the harmony between the two to make it work. Yeah. Ted he really liked the Wayne Barlow aesthetic, and I had a little bit different, but it worked great. Ted made these really weird. He did the head crab. That's pretty much the symbol of it all. And I remember taking his head crab and putting it on a scientist and making the zombie. Right. Well, we pretty much we talked, and it's like, okay, you do that, and Ted did the soldiers, I did the scientists, I did a lot of the aliens, and with the Hornet gun, I did the Hornet gun for that one as well too.
you know, the alien slave.
The bee
Well, I
cannon.
did some animations for the bull squid or bull chicken. I have to call him that. But that's a Ted creature there. The hound eye was Ted's as well.
Yeah, a lot of the fleshy. If it's got a like a lot of flesh on it, maybe too much.
Yeah, that's a Ted.
You can always tell Ted's designs because they're much more aquarium than aquarium and/or like unspeakables.
Oh, Big Mama! I forgot about Big Mama. Oh,
Yeah.
that was a testicle, right? It's like so disturbed. I concepted a guy in sort of a NASA spacesuit, a scientist guy. He was actually modeled after a couple of programmers I know. Big, beefy, bearded Linux programmers, and so that's where the HEV suit sort of emerged out of. There was a lot of desire for not having a space marine or a soldier be the guy, and then Chuck Jones went off and did a pretty different version of him that became known as Ivan the Space Biker.
Oh God. I remember telling myself, it's like anytime you make a screenshot, make sure it's good because you don't know where this is going to appear.
We didn't know that.
And Ivan is the prime example of that one. So you're looking at, we'll go look at Quake. It's like, okay, I'm looking at that, and he's got this incredibly boxy head, and you're always hearing, don't put too many polys in it. And it's like, okay, so Ivan got the square head, and it was kind of an early, just a rough prototype of a Gordon Freeman baby. And I remember we didn't know what Gordon looked like. So it's like I was looking for somebody, and I found Mike Harrington. It's like, Mike, what does Gordon look like? He's like, I don't know. Put yourself in there. Like, oh, okay. And so I went in and put kind of my likeness on the early Gordon model in the game. And it kind of stayed there. Well, I was an ex-tattoo artist, so yeah, I definitely had. I don't have anything to work with now, but yeah, that point I had a ponytail on.
If you play the game, you know that's Chuck. If you play multiplayer and you see the model, that's.
But yeah, if you look on the back of that, there's this little four triangles, and he's got a little ponytail back there. I did the G-Man, and again, that one was Gabe was talking about the Cigarette Man from X-Files. So we needed our own equivalent of that.
Because after a while, after playing with the
Yeah.
game for a whole
Who's the bad guy? It's the government.
We made this character.
Yeah, like who's the real bad guy? The G-Man, the cigarette smoking man. The real bad guy is the pigs, the FBI, and the CIA.
Character, and just off the scene in the beginning, where he's behind the window and he's talking to a scientist or something. And
The
it's like,
pigs.
Really creepy. It was late in the day that we thought, oh, okay, well he's going to be the big bad behind all of this. Like scatter him around in places that you can't get to him, but he's there mysteriously.
There wasn't enough in the beginning of the game. It's like we need another monster. Head crabs weren't enough. It got kind of repetitious. I think I grabbed Ted and said, I need them to do this and this. And so he whipped it out in not much time at all. I'm gonna get the timing just right. And I have no time to do this, so I'm just gonna bang it out. And then once it was working, everybody said, oh, let's go back and sprinkle them back in the maps. And that was this.
Then we introduced them a little earlier than we
Yeah,
were planning.
yeah, because they ended up being, they weren't real tough. They weren't supposed to be tough.
But they were ranged.
But they're ranged, and they were fun, and they had a big show, and like they was showing off a bunch of stuff.
Assassin came in pretty late.
Assassin was
It
so
like,
good.
Okay,
Yeah.
I have a week and a half. It was already done. It was already all modeled, already all animated, and the requirement was it couldn't have any new animations and any new anything. So had to come up. I grabbed a bunch of Steve Bond's AI and banged that thing out. I built a level super crude, but it had all the right spacing and all the right heights and all the right geometry.
Again, it's just a presentation where this creature gets to shine, this enemy gets to shine, and is your entire focus for that scene. And it's kind of a memorable experience because it just takes place in a different fashion than other encounters. When you get knocked out, and there's all kinds of the lights go out and you get dragged through a corridor and things. So again, it's something you remember in the game.
just did a lot of playtesting and did a lot of level building and used all of the monsters and you used everything that we had developed and started seeing which ones kind of stuck out a little oddly. You know, like we had the Hound Eyes that Ted had concepted and Kelly had done great sounds for them. And so they seemed like a very oddly plausible sort of alien creature. And Chuck did what we called the Panther Eye, which was this big black panther looking creature that also just had a big red eye for his face and a big shark fin coming out the back. And design wise, he seemed like this is a very useful creature. You know, it's like when you design things, you know, you like to have a gradient of difficulty, a gradient of escalation and threat. And so if we had these Hound Eyes, then oh yes, this like panther, bigger, scarier looking thing would be more of a threat. It was in the game for a long time and then sort of just worked its way out because folks couldn't find a way to incorporate a creature like that into the environment and make it seem reasonable.
The Stuka Bat was, it was something that I did, just another creature from the air. We had the chub toad that we were going to use as a feeding animal to help, and they had a mechanic to where they were going to use this to distract monsters so you could possibly get by. And it pretty much reached fruition to where we created the object, but then again, time became the factor and it had to get cut.
Wow.
I grew up just outside DC, and so there's all these like big, really banal office buildings, and that's kind of the direction I went. So it started becoming a facility. And so I started making these kind of linoleum tiles and the drop ceiling, the concrete block wall, the black and white tile floor.
She was like the texture artist for for most of the game. It's just an overwhelming amount of work.
Originally I was hand painting all of the textures, and you can really see a shift in some of them where they go from hand painted to photo reference. The photo references are much, much better. So I was all over Seattle, Harbor Island, Gasworks Park, getting rusty metal things. What can I get good pictures of that is vaguely industrial and interesting to look at? And then how can we use this? And so, sides of boxcars, and I don't know how many hallways in Half-Life are, the side of a train car kind of thing. The Kirkland Costco. Lot of time in the Kirkland Costco, getting packages of I don't know
Kirkland brand this and that.
Why I needed snacks or something.
Yep, that's the Kirkland Costco. Yeah.
The first year was all about opportunity. And it wasn't quite as focused. We were finding our footing.
We were getting into the 3 months before supposedly shipping in '97, and it's like, this isn't gelling. This is really not good. This is like, quick knockoff, cash grab, stupid, and let's not do that. There was a lot of disconnect between what all of the different groups were doing, what engineering was doing, and what level design was doing, and what animation was doing. We had a bunch of monsters that had no plans to get in the game because nobody else was assigned to work on them, and we had a bunch of levels that like, what's supposed to go in here? Oh, I don't know, everybody's gonna do a bunch of stuff, and like, no, that doesn't work that way.
Yeah. So here we were, all these people doing all these cool things, and just everything's just this random collection of, oh, here's a cool moment and a cool this, and and then it's gone, and oh, now on to the next thing. Because the way we were building the game was every level designer was kind of his own silo, his own universe. And I think that just grew out of our kind of mod developer roots, but it wasn't cohesive, and it certainly didn't have a strategy for like maximizing any of that stuff.
You must have been in the meeting when we reviewed all the levels. It was like the first time everybody piled into a room, and Gabe had his crazy Hellraiser chair with a beautiful Mac monitor, and we played for 2 days. He played everyone's levels. But I remember one moment, and he turned around, he was like this with his hair, he's going, we're gonna fail, we're gonna fail, we're gonna fail, we're gonna fail, we're gonna fail. And I was just like, it blew me away. I was like, oh shit, this isn't good.
we were doing our best trying to make this game and the story, and we had a schedule from Sierra, and it was a tight schedule. And we told them, like, we're not going to ship this, and we realized that you're not going to pay us to continue developing this, but we're going to do it anyway.
Late is just for a little while, suck is forever, right? We could try to force this thing out the door, but that's not the company we want to be. That's not the people we want to be. That's not the relationship we want to have with our customers.
And so Kelly and I kind of sat down and sort of tried to take an inventory of all this cool stuff we had built, and why weren't we just, building more on top of that? And those discussions kind of led to us building this kind of design cabal process to try to give some cohesion to the game and kind of changing the way we were approaching it.
And so a cabal was a small group of people, multidisciplinary group. There's like artists, level designers, engineers, and everything in that. And a small team that would write up the spec for a level. There was the arc that Mark had written, so we knew how that fit into the story.
And we got a small group of people together, and we started with the beginning, and we went through literally what map do we need to build to tell us the story we're going to have to tell, and then what does that connect to, and what's the next piece and the next piece.
The strongest and most influential thing that came out of them was, to me, the sketches, and they were.
I really wish Hardcore Henry had come around in the year 2004, because they easily could have done Hardcore Henry in the year 2004. It was very doable with a very basic, bit of camera work and stuff, and costuming and choreography. And I wish Hardcore Henry had been around before these games. We would have had a better influence, and people would have been more into it more, I think.
Were really the visual meeting notes, right?
We came up with a formula for how that worked. We had a certain percentage of the time where you were fighting, a certain percentage of the time where you're exploring, a certain percentage of the time where you're solving puzzles. And so we could apply that uniformly through the game, and that worked pretty well.
Testing. Everything seems to be in order.
Good morning, and welcome to the Black Mesa Transit System. This automated train is provided for the security and convenience of the Black Mesa Research Facility personnel.
The whole opening of the game was specifically a reaction to how all the other first-person shooters were, whether they had cutscenes or not. Like, sometimes, like, they would just open without a cutscene, but, you're standing in a room with a gun and there's a thing attacking you. So we could look at examples of all that, and I think there was expectation that that's what Half-Life had to do because every other game was doing it.
I can tell you the number of people who started up the game, were staring at it, and then accidentally bumped their mouse and realized this is live.
Yeah.
And as simple as that sounds, it was mind-blowing for so many people because there was too much going on. This isn't real time. This is a recording,
That was sort of the way we, stumbled through a lot of the new narrative tricks. Was like, well, what can we do that you could do this in a movie or a story, but nobody's doing this in first-person shooters.
You're this anonymous scientist, and you're riding on this train into work, and rolled the credits at the beginning. It was kind of like a cinematic experience almost. Like, I don't think games had really gone down that road. It's so funny to look at it now because it's so primitive, but at the time it felt like you were really in this Black Mesa world.
Pre-disaster survived from the first year, so a lot of that geometry was from that first version of the game, but in a very minimal way, right? Just the basic style of some of the hallways, the curved corners in the hallways, things like that. They more became sort of like Lego pieces that John could use and stitch together and extrude. And I know Brett did a lot of the raw geometry from pre-disaster, and then John did most of the work to ship it, and then the post and the train ride was all John, I think.
The Sector C, so those are heavily influenced by NASA control rooms, with my favorite green hammerite really influenced a lot of like the starting. We started with the kind of the consoles. I'm trying to remember, and then there was just lots of hallways and people were getting lost, and I did the color stripes to help people follow them places.
One of the things that was actually super exciting was how quotidian a lot of it really was. The lunchroom with the microwave, you press the button and it goes flat.
My God, what are you doing?
Yeah, all this work so you could start a microwave and blow up some soup, which was a reference to real life, because that happened regularly. Like, we regularly accidentally blew up.
Lego mostly, wasn't it?
There were a few people who were just, challenged with kitchen appliances, and at one point we had a company fire. we had a lot of things going on in that kitchen.
All of that stuff had a real kind of eloquence that in the late 90s, in a world where everything was so over the top, but we still got to go on Flight for Fancy.
I think like a super pivotal moment for me was when we came in this one morning and we saw the test chamber sequence that Kelly and John Guthrie and Wedge was in that office, and Dario Driller, they were all in this corner dark office where so much cool stuff happened. But so Kelly and John stayed up all night and did the test chamber sequence, and it's pretty much like the one we shipped.
I mean, that was a lot of what went on in that room that we called the submarine. It was just improvisation, just what can we do to solve this problem? How do we connect what's happening before to what's happening after? This needs to be somehow important, but we just don't know what to do. John and I talked about it. I went home that night and I sort of sketched out, like, maybe we could do something cinematic. We'll take the camera away, we'll turn the lights off, we'll do sounds, we'll just throw everything we can at it. We built that basically that day. It was just a sort of a one-day throw it together. That's how fast we were moving.
They had audio, right?
Yeah, it's like the heartbeat and the breathing, all that stuff was in there. And I played through it and it was like, damn, I have not seen this in any medium, in anything before. Experienced something like this, where this immersive experience of this actually happening like this. And at that point, it's like, okay, I see what it is we're doing. And it's this kind of immersive, unbroken experience that happens to you, the player. And then that was this key principle about how, we never take you out of that role.
Personally, the difference between before the disaster sequence and after the disaster sequence, I felt I had an understanding that this product was going to be special, it was going to be possible, it was going to be tied together, whereas before that, there was a lot of really good stuff and a lot of little things all disconnected. But you guys managed to tie two very different parts of the game together really well, and I thought, okay, now I feel like we're on track for finishing this product. To me, it shifted my brain to have a lot of confidence that this product's coming together rather than just generating a lot of content that exists independently of other content.
One of the ways we were funding our development was we sold a preview copy of Half-Life to a video card company, I forget which one. And so they had in their contract that we had to deliver it to them by a certain date. And we got like the first 3 levels done for them. It was really a good milestone for us, just from working as a company, because hey, there was a deliverable. We got it done. And we shipped it off to them. And then I swear the next day it leaked. And I was just livid at first, which was stupid. But I was just like, I can't believe you guys let this get out. Like, this wasn't us, And then it turned into something amazing where people started playing it. And it was all over, and we started, seeing it, online, what people were thinking about it. And I forget which magazine who said, usually we don't review, beta software, but they reviewed it and said, this is awesome. And that gave us a tremendous amount of confidence. It was an outside validation of what we were trying to do, that it was the right thing.
I think just with first-person shooters already, they were kind of like the valves of weapons you put into first person. You got to have a shotgun, and there's obviously a pistol. You need your weapon that's going to make you struggle and you drive you to get another weapon.
That was a lesson in how to make all of your weapons as orthogonal as possible, so each one did something completely different. All the crazy weapons, those are my fault. So I did like the rocket launcher and the Gauss gun and the snarks.
Oh, I like snarks. Snarks always made me laugh. It's just always funny to watch people run away from the snarks.
the squeak grenade. It's
Yeah,
called the
that's right.
snark, but
Yeah.
I wanted something, little creature that you could bring up and hold, and you could throw it out, and it would just start running. Because people were camping, and everybody hated campers at that point. So you wanted the anti-camp weapon. But it was kind of, you could literally find a little hidey hole and just sit out there and just throw out 30 of them. And they're all over the map. I had a cat, and you'd sit there, you do your finger blue. Yeah, you do your finger towards him, and he'd get mad at you and he'd swat. So that was the inspiration for that particular animation. And then the other, that big alien creature with the, we needed some kind of alien weapon. Drew that one, built that one, animated that one, but that was also another one that would, whenever you could get in a corner and just shoot them in the air because the hornets would track. I think that was the biggest thrill, is brainstorming these with your crew, making them, building them, putting them in the game, and then playing with them, and then they're fun.
So there's sort of a trope of having a melee weapon. I think it was Steve Bond and Ken Birdwell and I were saying we wanted a device where the world was reacting to. It really goes back to that theory of fun. But we were just running around like idiots, smacking the wall. It's an odd thing to know in retrospect, but at the time it felt profoundly satisfying to be able to smack walls. And that was just an example of how that fairly abstract notion of what fun was ended up translating into a set of decisions that were really visceral. When you're going around whacking a wall, a crowbar is an obvious thing to whack the wall with.
47 silver, not bad. Bye.
If the sound could let you know what's going to happen, that's really makes it powerful. So we were always on the lookout for that in level design and monster design, communicating, because the AI is often hidden from the player. So we use the sound to broadcast the internal state of the AI. You know, soldiers, they tell you, I'm injured, I'm going to throw a grenade, I'm taking cover. You know, they are broadcasting as constantly as they can what's about to happen. So it was really
reloading.
To try to keep
I've always liked that one. Reloading. Shoot that guy now. Like you can hear the general across the way, across the gully or whatever. It's like, shoot that man now. He just announced he was reloading. I can't think of anything stupider in all of war or gun battle than going reloading to the entire fucking to the entire building you're in. Reloading, guys, shoot me. And they do this in video games all the time. Reloading. Yeah, don't announce it. Please don't. Any real reality, you just get pushed and shot when you're reloading.
Play the game.
I know you guys did PvE all your lives in single player games, and you're kind of bad, and you don't really know how to fight people firsthand. But yeah.
Actually, whether you're aware of it or not, you're starting to be able to tell what's about to happen.
We knew he was a musician.
But yeah, you don't go calling out reloading. You know, that's not something you do in real life. That's pretty much like saying, I'm not going to shoot at you right now, so you should shoot at me. It's the same statement. Reloading is kind of like, I'm not going to shoot at you right now, so I'm a fairly vulnerable target. You know, it's it's like the stupidest thing you could ever do. And for 25, 30 years, that's all you hear in all the shooters. Reloading, 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 reloading. You know, like, why are you fucking telegraphing that you're reloading? Yeah.
He also decided he was going to write the sound engine. And then he wrote the soundtrack. And he'd never written a soundtrack before, and he wrote the whole, soundtrack for the game, and it won an award, and it was crazy.
There just weren't that many of us. I had a little bit of a background playing music. I understood the sound engine really well, so it was really easy for me to just hook sounds in, and I understood enough about the level design side that I could kind of connect those things a little bit. The sounds could come from anywhere, and then I just heavily modified them. Usually those are animal sounds, reversing, changing the pitch, chopping them up and rearranging them. Head crabs were rats. The little squeaky, yeah, that's a rat slowed way down and then reversed.
Yep, fucking rat sound. I hated it.
Yeah, the DSP stuff was another cool thing that Kelly built. When you got an event, it sounded like your event. That wasn't really happening,
Look
I
at the
guess.
tiny silver crystals and the distinct smell. Why, it's clear as daylight that this is Seaphorium powder. Seaphorium is harmless enough, but once it's wet, it could blow Ironforge out to the mountain. The chemical reaction can be diffused by mixing 4 components: lurker venom, crushed Mogrosh crystal, a crocolis tear, and this disarming colloid. Now tell Hinderwehr before it's too late.
At least in Quake and other games I was playing back then.
You know, we had these huge silos, these cavernous spaces. The day they had their own echoey DSP, it made an enormous difference, right? You believed the space.
Kelly tells me, oh God, Chuck Jones asked him if the characters could speak and how their mouths move. And Kelly said, you know, that's super easy. You know, I can just look at the audio and see if they're talking and do that. But like getting the mouth to move is stupid, he says to me. And I look, Chuck Jones told me the same thing. I told him making the mouths move was super trivially easy, but knowing when they're talking and knowing how to follow the envelope of the speech would be impossible. And Kelly and I just both looked at each other and like, oh. And so I went back to my office and he went back to his office. And I think within an hour, the characters were talking and their mouths were moving. And it was only because we sat there at lunch bitching about an animator who was 100% right.
Why are you leaving me here? Scientist conversations, Kelly and I made that. When they're next to each other, one scientist will occasionally play a question and the other one will give him an answer. And it's not a script. It just it might not always make sense.
I am rather looking forward to this analysis, aren't you? I don't think so.
But
I don't think so.
Personality was really cool. And I worked on getting those guys to look at you and turn their heads.
When we first added the ability for scientists to respond to the player and other things in the environment, what we call them, response rules. The first time that went in, they came flying down the elevator, and one of them looks at you and goes, "Oh, hello, Gordon." And then they exploded into a pile of jibs at the bottom.
The automatic diagnostic and announcement system.
This was good. I enjoyed this video.
Started working on the biggest part of the game, which I ended up shipping, which was Surface Tension. Prior to then, a lot of the work that I had done was the Alien Research Labs, which turned into questionable ethics, and all of that was ditched. There were some concepts made it through. Everything was rebuilt from zero. But you know what did make it through was Power Up. Yeah, basically that geometry survived completely intact. It was so closely designed for that creature that because the creature survived, the levels survived along with it. Yeah, there's this sort of central circular thing where you have to rotate the train. You have to kill the Gargantua first because he was always defending the way out. And then you have to go to like another area which looks very much like it was designed for Quake, because pretty much it was. There was a flooded pump room, and you have to drain the generator, and then you switch the power on, and then you can take the train out. Yeah, I remember him being totally central to this whole thing. And then, well, how do we block the player? Which is, I mean, that's pretty much like design point number one for all level design. Okay, well, how do we prevent the player from just walking straight out through the exit? And you design backwards from there.
In the first year, we built a lot of world space, a lot of track, as we call it, and the programmers would try to fit the AI into the existing maps. What we did the second year was we built the AI in very constrained environments that showcase the AI. Let's make the ideal space for the AI and then give that to the level designers to incorporate those elements into their map so that it worked better and was more interesting. And that Gargantua was an example of that. and the grunts especially.
Yeah, we had the AI that Steve had been working on, and he had designed all these interesting encounters with them just in his test map, and so he had him up high and down low, and so basically we just sort of re-leveraged that. So, okay, let's start with the player comes in low, and there's a Marine on the same level, and then the next one they're up high, and then they come running down. It was really neat to see them retreat. They try to run back up the stairs and try to flank you from the other side.
So Steve Bond, like I mentioned earlier, was this really young guy who had been making mods in QuakeC, really the designer for so much of the AI, all the stuff that's good about the soldiers, the drones who fight in Half-Life.
Yeah, we had a little bit of a language that we could sort of use to say, this is a place they can climb, this is a place they can jump to, this is a good place to hide. These are good places to go in general, or interesting places. So, the AI had a little bit of help. We were trying to build something that utilized, the train technology that Jay was working on. And we thought, well, let's give the player something that they can control, but in a limited way. We couldn't do vehicles like you see in Half-Life 2. So we did the most constrained vehicle we could think of, which was the train. Players didn't always bring the train with them. And so you had a bunch of these poor people walking down these tunnels.
Was that why you electrified the
rail? And the rails that was part of the feedback.
From that.
Part of the feedback was, well, you can just bypass all this, so we made the rails electric. It's like, well, maybe that'll teach them to bring the train with them. But the basic idea is, let's explore that, and then also reveal some of the hidden deep parts of the base, the abandoned areas where you might get a lot more of the Zen creatures. We had designed some of the ones that didn't make it into the game to appear there, bats that would dive bomb you, and while you're on the train, sticky bats, and then we also tried hard to not make it feel like it was the super linear thing, so we tried to give little branches, and so there were some challenges there.
Well, there's a really good sketch that Kelly Bailey made, which basically charted surface tension, and it was pretty extensive. Like, it went through the cliffside, and it went through areas where tanks were, and like a lot of soldier holdouts. Yeah, it even went through the desert with the cactuses and the helicopters, and then across a dam. It was pretty extensive. When I saw that sketch, I was so motivated to just start building all of that stuff.
So I ran ahead with a lot of level design, a lot of geometry, and it seems like a lot of it stuck in some way or another, which is really amazing. I did the dam, which was funny. I just did that in a day. It was like about 4 or 5 hours. I did a Hoover Dam thing because I like the Hoover Dam.
I saw a concept of the cliffside. I think Harry Teasley built that render of the skybox. And I just thought, holy crap, this is perfect for Vertigo. Like, whatever we do here, we have to play on Vertigo and narrow little edges and places you would like to normally dodge a grenade that you can't.
So good.
And that's
so good.
That's really the big part of that level, is that reveal. And the play is kind of supports it afterward. The helicopter comes in, you're fighting the helicopter, which is awesome.
First of all, I had a bunch of textures, and then every time I made new ones, whoever was working on the new levels would be like, "Oh, fresh textures! I'm going to use those." Somebody making another level would start using them, and I was like, "No, this is chaos. We need to restrict this." So I started naming the texture sets by the level that they were made for. I was trying to enforce some sort of visual cohesion, and so that really ended up working.
There was one level I did. It was the introduction of the sort of the bounce pads, the alien bounce pads in the real world thing, because story-wise, okay, you're getting closer to hitting the alien world. So I was, let's get a little bit of alien world infection into the real world. So I had done it just as a visual thing. John Guthrie made it 10 times better, and that's actually where he found the photo of my daughter, because I didn't put my daughter in Gordon's locker. I hid her in this destroyed office someplace, as a little Easter egg for myself. And John went and put my daughter's photo in Gordon's locker, which I think was a good decision.
Aww.
still get questions about stuff that I spent 5 minutes on 25 years ago. People have now thought about it.
It's because they didn't live their own lives. They live vicariously through yours. And so everything that you do is so important to them.
Years, and they're thinking that there's 25 years worth of development went into this. And like, on some level, when you start talking about lore, I'm like, well, there's Black Mesa. That was just a matter. We needed a name for something that was evocative.
In that entrance, when you get off the train and there's that lobby where there's a big map on it, and when we were making that map, that was fairly early on, I put a dot in New Mexico, and then that turned into, I think Mark saw that, he was like, oh, where is that? This is where we are. And then he named it Black Mesa.
That is a favorite thing of mine, actually. If you come up with a name for something and it evokes something, then you don't have to write the whole story. It's because it's a conspiracy plot. Everybody knows more about it than you do, so you don't have to answer those questions. You just keep raising questions and make the mystery kind of thing.
Like dialogue came in later, also, so a lot
Chocolate.
of sequences came in later, and those helped to kind of sharpen the storytelling aspect of it, because I mean, setting expectations to get up to the surface and then like, oh no, they're not here to help us.
The whole thing about diegetic writing, right? Like keeping the exposition in the game instead of outside the game. You know, I give a lot of credit to Mark.
After playtests, we realized that maybe you need more of a dialogue cue about something.
That's when we started to do like scientists who were literally pop up in a corner and go that way. And there's a few of those that we stuck in right at the end when we'd like, well, we get one more session with Hal. He can say, go down here, you know, go around that corner.
Well, so much for the government. Their idea of containment is to kill everyone associated with the project. Judging from your hazard suit, I'd say you were part of what went wrong.
I knew Hal from San Francisco as an artist, cartoonist. He was also an animator and an actor in some science fiction movies. So when we got down to the wire, we did a bunch of voice casting and nothing was right. I just kept thinking of Hal. I finally just called him and said, Hal, I want you to at least talk to people here so they can hear your voice. And I got him on a speakerphone, and I had a bunch of people gathered in my office. Like, okay, Hal, everybody's here. And he's like, well, what would you like me to say? And everybody was like, this is him.
This is him. This is him.
Why do we all have to wear these ridiculous ties?
I don't know, but we do. But we do. We're all suit dummies. We're all suit dummies deep down inside. Why do we have to wear these ridiculous ties? I don't know, but you guys seem to really be white and really seem to value those ties.
We knew we wanted to use them, but we brought them in to do...
Why do we wear these ridiculous ties? I don't know, but it's nerdy, dumb, and I really don't like it.
And also the G-Man. So we did a take on all the G-Man lines with kind of a straight voice, and I was thinking that, okay, we have something safe, but we're not super excited about it, and give us something else. And he does this crazy lizard voice.
The border world, Zen, is in our control for the time being. Thanks
For the
to
time
you.
being.
Quite a nasty...
No, it's an impression of the cigarette smoking man, and I forget the name of that actor, but he spoke exactly like that. Michael Morley or something like that. I forget the name of him, but he was so fucking good. Like, and he spoke exactly like that. It's a really good impression of him. Know the references.
Some work you managed over there. I am impressed.
And we took it back, and everybody just loved the crazy lizard voice, and so that's how it worked out.
Did you do the Nylath?
I did.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Nylath. Just imagine his head floating in space as a baby.
Oh.
I went into Gabe's office and I demanded Gabe to either fire Ken or I quit. He just laughed at me.
Correct response from Gabe.
Yeah. And I was like, oh.
Until Bill got there, I was the oldest guy there. It was hard because, you know, I had to go home in the evenings, whereas the kids the young guys who just moved out from Florida or wherever,
Yeah.
they did not have to go home.
They just had to party and fucking drink and smoke and have sex and stuff. Yeah. like I did most of my life. Now I'm the guy who works 12-hour days, and I don't care about holidays. And
I'd go home, see my kids when they were in bed. I would come back down the hill to Valve. Nobody else I worked with had to get up to get their kids off to school in the morning, but I did.
You're wired to just take full advantage of the situation. Like you put everything into it. So when we say we work 18-hour days, that's no exaggeration.
Yeah.
And not at all. I can edit all day.
Nope.
I can design all day. I
Yep.
don't have to worry about anything. You know, 2 guys from Microsoft start a game studio with a bunch of incredibly capable, with an incredible team. You're gonna push yourself harder than ever before.
I don't usually crunch real hard. I get it done in I come in, I work, I go home, and a lot of people were living really long hours. The classic. Well, I'll come in at 1 and then goof around for a while and then work late into the morning. Late at night. I was employee 17. There was a woman that was the kind of the office manager, and eventually Mona Lisa Guthrie came in as at the desk. I was the only woman on the team.
oh
That was not awesome.
no,
I decided to become a baseball fan here after the birth of my first daughter. So she's the one in Gordon's locker, Isabel, that she's very special needs. She's 25 today. Cognitively she's about 3 years old.
Oh.
So after her birth, in the middle of Half-Life production, that was really hard. It was really hard because we were getting about 2 hours of sleep at a stretch because she had to be fed through a tube in her stomach every 2 hours.
Oh my
I had
God.
Just a difficult time relating to the world.
Yeah.
When she was a baby, I had a hard time just talking to people because I was just kind of tired and angry all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, my wife, she worked at Valve for a while. She did a bunch of textures for the game. Like I said, she did
Aww.
she did just a bunch of level textures. She textured Big Mama, the sort of boss creature. She textured him. But when Isabel arrived, she obviously had a lot of issues. So I had to stop working and stay with her at home. And it was the last year of Half-Life, and we pretty much crunched that whole year. So,
yeah. The lead developer was his wife, or the texture developer was his wife. I've been in situations like that before.
Games have often had this thing where they're just a little too attached to Star Wars, Blade Runner, Aliens.
Yep. I can't stand it. I can't stand what Space Marines did to video games. It's goddamn disgusting. And I love Aliens and Terminator and Rambo 1 as much as all the other fucking weird gamers and right-wing people and gun nuts and all this, right? But I really don't want fucking Space Marines in any of my video games anymore. I don't want to see Halo. I don't value Destiny. I don't care about fucking Space Marines or Alien Isolation or any of that other shit. Honestly, that shit is straight for the birds like Marvel. You destroyed sci-fi and fantasy with it. Thank God for Lord of the Rings, or it would all be Marvel,
To get people to go, let's think of something really alien. Like what Zen was initially was you're going to go inside a huge alien organism and kill it or figure out how to turn it on or off or something like that. I didn't know we couldn't actually do that or what was involved.
What does it mean to have alien architecture or a planet that's biologically defining the structures in it, as opposed to what the tools we're good at, which is making rectangles?
And then slowly it scaled back till it was more and more corridors, and that everybody was really good at.
People were finishing up stuff, and I was still working on Zen, because it was like it went through a lot of iteration, or at least we're trying to figure out what it was. Different people were taking swings at it, either in static concepts.
There a bit of a timeline crunch for it as well?
Yeah, it was the end of the game. Yeah, I wanted to cut stuff out, and they're like, no, leave it in. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't have any. I don't have any support for this. And then after a lot of it was built, it's like, oh yeah, we're gonna change the gravity and give you a jump pack. That came later, and I was like,
there's a lot of stuff, especially in Zen, where you're getting close to a first draft of some things, right? Because we just didn't have time, and we got to the end of the game, and so we considered not going to Zen, but the art concepts people did were so cool.
For the Zen textures, I was deeply inspired by electron microscope imagery, and we'd had so much of that regular.
There's a real artist.
Texture material that I wanted to do something more organic. Insects as well. I think there's a lot of textures that were based on beetles. That was really fun, and incredibly challenging levels to make because that editor was not friendly for organic shapes.
I built the little behaviors for the tree that hits you if you get too close, and the light stalk that kind of hides. But Ken did a bunch of AIs there, the floating controller guys.
And the flying guys were great, but you had to set up air nodes for them to travel properly. I prototyped a lot, and some of those prototypes were used in the final battle, I believe, and also for the Gonard, which I think Randy did.
We, at some point, have to stop polishing. At some point, we have to, like, it is what it is. And if the player hasn't had fun up until that point, well, then we failed. They're not going to get to that point, so who cares? It just has to finish, and it did.
Yeah, and there's always Half-Life 2 to win them back.
I love that sensation of being alone in the alien dimension. But the experience that people really liked in the game was scientists pop up and Barney pops up and you have companions and you have this feeling of companionship around you with all the other stuff that's going on. So a lot of people miss that, which I understood.
Welcome to my inn, weary traveler.
If we
What
had
can I do for you?
thought about the ending from the beginning, we would have figured out some ways to do that a little more.
Changed our lives. Punk rock changed our lives. I'm sorry, Half-Life changed our lives. Punk rock changed my life.
I remember coming back from downtown Cabo very drunk and then running to the beach, but didn't know there was like a 6-foot retaining wall there, so I just went right over. And then I was hurting so much I slept the night where I fell. Yeah, I woke up the next
I
morning.
had never
with,
heard
like,
that
a really
story.
stiff neck.
Oh my god. It's a good thing you were pretty young.
I remember after we'd gone final on the game, I was home one morning, taking a shower, and my wife asked me, like, it's done? Is it any good? Is the game done? Like,
I hope so.
I don't think it's exaggerating by saying if any one of the crew had disappeared for a month, we wouldn't have shipped. It didn't matter who they were. Everybody was mission critical.
My inspiration.
Goddamn
from that
right.
I really took away with me was that the thing that is most important to me is what are we making. Coming in as a texture artist, you don't have a lot of expectation that you're going to get to influence that. And I was able to have quite a bit of influence on the what.
Yep.
It was so fun to work with the people who were making Half-Life. The collection of people were diverse, at least like in their professional backgrounds, was kind of all over the place. And so figuring out how to work with all those people, but also just the fact that we had hired really stellar people who were good at collaborating, like conscientious people, deeply passionate about what they wanted to create. That just was a recipe for a professionally, like, really good time.
It seems to me that one of the things that good games do is make 2 games worth of stuff and then throw away the bad game. And fortunately, Valve was able to do that. A lot of companies couldn't do that, but backstopped by Gabe and Mike.
We loved them for it.
Valve
We worship them still. It's been 17 years since these dinosaurs have done anything at all. Or not 17, excuse me. If you consider Portal good enough, which I don't. Or Portal 2. If you ignore Portal 2, it has been 17 years since these dinosaurs have done anything. But when they did do something, it really changed us.
Interesting to say when people say, would you reflect on your legacy? Like, I really don't look back a whole lot. I'm always excited by the future, right? So to me, it's like I can look back at the things we did, but to me, they're just sort of like the stepping stones to what we're going to be able to do in the future. Like, that's just how I'm wired, right?
Yeah, it was good. I like the $300,000. I like this whole bit. This was a great one. Let's watch this one again. This one's very funny. Hey. Hey.
I call my mom and tell her
that I ripped off Disney.
I'm not calling your mom. Stay there.
You're an adult, correct?
Producing content online. It can be
I'm not calling your mom. You're an adult, right? I'm not calling your mom. The only people who call your mom are either me or a born loser. They're the only people who call your mom, you know?
In your own hype. Social media is designed for addiction. And if it's your job, you're spending most of your waking hours.
I call my mom and tell her that
You're an adult, correct?
Yeah.
I'm not calling your mom. Stay there.
You're an adult, correct? I'm not calling your mom. I'll call your mom. I'll call your mom pretty loud.
To producing content online, it can be easy to get lost in your own hype.
Fucking
social media is designed for
fucking stupid criminals and stupid cops.
And if it's your job,
you forgot which one you're playing. Good cop, bad cop, but you forgot which one was good cop. Now he's the bad cop.
Spending most of your waking hours on it in some capacity. Your work revolves around you, whether that be just your thoughts and feelings or your entire being. So every time you post online, you're inundated with thousands of comments telling you that you're an amazing person. You've saved someone's life by being there for them in their most dire moments. And your content is one of a kind. People begin to hold you up as an ideal, praising your work and who you are in general. And due to the addicting nature of social media, it's virtually all you see. Every person you interact with online is someone who is praising you in some capacity. And unless you have people around you to keep you in check, it's easy to buy into that hype. You begin to think that you're the funniest person of your generation, that your editing style is one of a kind, and that anyone who does anything remotely similar to you online must be copying you in some aspects. Your ego begins to grow, and suddenly you view yourself as an incredibly influential artist who deserves the finer things in life. But that is rarely, if ever, true. Through social media, we've seen the rise and fall of countless content creators, most of which...
Yeah, like, okay, I've done, yeah, 3 songs on my channel just this year, and I'm sure it'll reach an album by the end of it. And I think most people are like, oh my God, I'm cutting an album. I must be hot shit. I'm a big artist on the streets and everything. Everybody should listen to me and buy my shit or I'll come kill you and all this stuff. And it's like, nah, if it's good, they'll listen to it.
In today's case, we will be discussing a man who, in just a matter of months on Twitter, believed that he had become Disney's sworn enemy and took part in the most elaborate and frankly stupid heist in theme park history. Welcome back to another episode of Dreading, or if this is your first time here, welcome. Today, we're going to be going over the case of Patrick Spikes, also known as Backdoor Disney, and how this
Backdoor Disney
employee started a one-sided war with the park and still lost. When I initially started this channel, I focused primarily on crimes that happened on or around Disney, as I found those cases to be especially interesting. So I've been waiting on an appropriate time to make this video, and given the heavy subject matter of the majority of our cases, I found this case would work as a sort of palate cleanser. All of my sources will be linked below, and I highly encourage you check them out, as a lot of the reporting done around this crime
was done by independent theme park enthusiasts, and they deserve to have their work seen. Specifically, I wanted to give a quick thank you to the Theme Park Tribune, who was able to put the majority of the documentation regarding this case on their website. They also provided me with tips that had not been made public until now, and I cannot be more thankful. With all of that said, if you prefer my other content, I will have a new video for you in a week. Now, let us begin. Walt Disney's initial concept for Epcot emerged during the early 1960s as he was considering plans for the expansion of Disneyland in California. Disney envisioned Epcot as a living, breathing community where people could work, live, and play. It was meant to be a showcase of technological advancements, as well as urban planning and community living. One of the primary goals of Epcot was to address various societal and technological challenges. Disney wanted to create an environment where ideas and innovations could be tested and implemented, demonstrating how technology and community living could improve people's lives. He envisioned Epcot as a platform for corporate and government collaboration, where the companies and organizations could showcase their latest developments. Sadly, Walt Disney passed away in 1966 before he could fully realize his vision for Epcot. Following his death, the Walt Disney Company decided to move forward with the construction of a theme park called Epcot Center, which opened in 1982 at Walt Disney World Resort in Florida. While it retained some elements of Walt's original concept, such as showcasing technological advancements and international cultures, it primarily focused on entertainment and education, rather than being a functioning community. The park was split up into a World Showcase, which was dedicated to showing cultures from around the world, and the other half was Future World, which was dedicated to science, technology, and hopeful visions of the future. The Future World side of the park primarily focused on education, with shows and attractions meant to teach lessons and expand the minds of children. When Disney decided to move forward with this concept, they approached several corporate sponsors to help fund certain pavilions in the park. For example, when the Universe of Energy Pavilion opened, it was primarily sponsored by ExxonMobil. They would fund the majority of the ride, from the construction to the upkeep, and the pavilion would have advertisements within the ride itself. However, this approach would have multiple unforeseen consequences, from Disney partnering with less than savory companies, like Monsanto, who produced Agent Orange during the Vietnam War, and sponsors deciding to pull out after their contracts had expired. When sponsors would pull out, they would leave Disney shouldering the cost of the ride maintenance and upkeep. Some of these rides were incredibly well made, and the advertisements throughout were subtle and unintrusive. However, others were not. Fitting corporate sponsors into a whimsical ride is a hard task, and some of the rides in the Future World section of the park would be panned because of that. Similarly, Future World wasn't something that a lot of people, especially kids, felt drawn to. They weren't going to Disney World to learn, and when given the choice, they enjoyed the park that was filled with whimsical cartoon characters and rides about them. In 1989, Disney opened the Wonders of Life Pavilion, which was an area of Future World dedicated to health and fitness. The area was sponsored by MetLife and contained two main attractions. One of these attractions was Body Wars, Epcot's first thrill ride that utilized the Atlas simulation technology also used in Star Tours. The second main attraction was Cranium Command, a sit-down audio animatronic theater show that educated audiences about the importance of the brain and the relationship between the human brain and the body. The star of Cranium Command was Buzzy, an animatronic soldier whose job was to pilot a 12-year-old boy and keep him out of trouble.
Oh no.
Would sit and watch as Buzzy tries his best to make sure the boy gets through.
So you understand like what he just said. We're going to say this again. So they've known about Inside Out, and they wanted to do Inside Out for like 25 years, but it's been buzzing around their little Disney heads about how to show a little cartoon character who represents your emotions, right? And they've always had this in cartoons. Oh, the devil on his shoulder and the angel on the other shoulder and all these weird like morality things. And it's kind of funny. He doesn't really draw the connection, but I wish he would.
Star of Cranium Command was Buzzy, an animatronic soldier whose job was to pilot a 12-year-old boy.
There it is. There, Buzzy, an animatronic soldier whose job it was to pilot a 12-year-old boy, which seems so weird. Just the concept and all of it.
The star of Cranium Command was Buzzy, an animatronic soldier whose job was to pilot a 12-year-old boy and keep him out of trouble.
Yeah, like that movie Inside Out, you remember? And so they've known about Inside Out since like 1976. That, and if you understand that, you understand Disney. They've been playing the long game since like 1970, and we're like 60 years into the long game now. And I mean, they've been doing this a long time. Like they don't, they don't intend on losing. So yeah, they knew about Inside Out in 1970. You can see it right there.
The audience member would sit and watch as Buzzy tries his best to make sure the boy gets through the day unharmed.
Remember, it's like Inside Out. That is like literally the plot to Inside Out. It's like Amy Poehler and all the other Parks and Recs cast members inside of the little 12-year-old girl's head, trying to tell her how to get past her level 23. Looking for duel to death Makara. May you find what you are looking for. Good hunting. But it is not me. I'm not your fool. Oh, yeah, look at all that. All that agility. All that agility gear. It's golds and golds and golds worth of agility gear. Wait, shit, I'm about to buy a new one, too. Oh, yeah, look. And all the shit that replaced it basically paid for everything that I bought, which is kind of funny. Let's look at leather. I don't know. Let's go back through again. Yeah, wasn't there something like that? I mean, that's not an upgrade though. No. So we're gonna come to waste. Yeah, there was that guy is an upgrade. He's 369. I can't buy that. Legs. Excuse you. Excuse me, I had the hiccups. There, that's superior. But it's 4 gold. Excuse me. See, I can play a lot of weird shit here, but I'm not gonna. This guy doesn't want to talk to me, and I don't want to talk to him. I can fuck with his head a lot.
And throughout, you would learn about his left brain and right brain, and the differences between the two. Video of the show can be found online in the the show served as inspiration for the movie Inside Out. The pavilion was popular.
Oh, he called it. He called it. I was gonna say they've been doing Inside Out for years and years. Then,
as Body Wars was the first ride of its kind in the Florida park. It used the same ride system as Star Tours in California, and people flocked to it initially to get a taste of the ride. But when Florida would eventually get their own version of the Star Wars simulator, Body Wars' popularity quickly plummeted. Body Wars was the big attraction for the Wonders of Life Pavilion, meant to draw people into the area, whereas Cranium Command was the supplementary show, which was meant to entertain those who didn't want to wait in line for Body Wars and get out of the heat. The general park goer wasn't going out of their way to see Cranium Command, but if they were in the area, they would stop by just to take a break. But with Body Wars no longer drawing people out, less and less people were going to see Cranium Command. In 2001, MetLife ended their partnership with Disney.
Welcome to the Bank of Stormwind. We offer financial accounts and safety deposit boxes for valuable items. Do you already have an account with us, ma'am?
Only open the pavilion seasonally. 6 years later, the pavilion would quietly close permanently. But despite the closure, the Wonders of Life Pavilion would gain new life, this time as a target for urban explorers. Disney would use the building to hold corporate events and serve as storage for various festivals they would have in the park, so they rarely locked the doors. Signage for the pavilion had similarly been taken down and removed from park maps, but there was nothing stopping an average park goer from wandering over to the pavilion and seeing what had become of the older rides. Because the building was out of the way and Disney had taken down any signs leading to it, an average Disney Parks guest wouldn't think to look for the pavilion or enter the building, seeing as it was clearly closed. But with the advent of urban exploring online, it became an easy target. People, usually between the ages of 12 and 30, would go to the pavilion with their cameras and shoot as much behind-the-scenes footage as they could. If it wouldn't go viral, the niche of urban exploring videos online would guarantee a few thousand views, making the footage highly profitable. The urban explorers who would go into the former pavilion found that Cranium Command was still completely intact, with Buzzy still perched in his station, ready to go. In 2012, an unknown person...
Why wouldn't he be? Until you shitheads got a hold of it. Until the vandalist public got a hold of it, why wouldn't he be? The minute that whoever didn't spend the money on it gets involved, he's not harassed. Yeah. The minute that whoever didn't spend all the money on him is involved, yeah, he gets harassed, doesn't he?
From then on, photos of him from Urban Explorers showed him with his bare metallic animatronic hands. Authentic Disney theme park memorabilia was incredibly profitable, with people paying thousands of dollars for props used in the parks. As of writing, there is currently